All right, welcome to another edition of the Deals for Dentists podcast. And today we're joined by Dr. Paul Etchison, who's zooming in from the suburbs of Chicago. Is that right?
That's right. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for joining me. I've been actually wanted to talk to you for a while because I read your book, um, and I actually passed that along to some of my staff members. So,
Awesome.
um,
Thanks.
yeah, no, it was an excellent read. Dr. Etchison is the author of Dental Practice Hero: From Ordinary Practice to Extraordinary Experience. He's also a speaker and has his own podcast, the Dental Practice Heroes podcast, and he's a practicing dentist. So a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
So I just wanted to start with your dental journey. Like, how did you decide to become a dentist? Where did you go to dental school? Let's start there.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird story because I was an advertising major, and my stepdad at the time had this really great internship at Leo Burnett in Chicago that somebody he knew that worked there was getting for me. And then unfortunately, the person that he knew ended up having a stroke, going on disability. I didn't get the internship. And then it kind of led me to really reevaluate whether I even wanted to do that at all. So as I reevaluated that, I decided it wasn't really for me. And then started, you start Googling things like best jobs, and, dentist pops up there pretty high. And I just decided to go with that. I mean, it was like, okay, you could be a doctor, you could be a business owner, you don't have to work on the weekends, sometimes work 4 days a week, and the income looks good. And if I screw something up, it's just a tooth. It's not someone's life. So it just I just tried it. And then when I got out of it, or once I got into it, I decided that, I realized that I really liked it. So I really liked the working with the hands part, but that had nothing to do with me deciding to do it. It was just kind of serendipitous that let's try this and let's go for it. And we just did it. So
And where'd you go to dental school?
I went to UIC in Chicago. So I went to UIC in Chicago. I graduated in 2009, did an associateship for about 2.5 years. And then I opened up my own practice, which is my current practice, in 2012. And that's Nelson Ridge Family Dental. That's in New Lenox, which is maybe like 40 miles south of Chicago. And it's a suburb, but it's probably like the last Chicago suburb before it turns into like farmland. So I'm about as far from Chicago as you can be and still be in a suburb. But yeah, we've been open since 2012, going on 9 years this April. So it's been good.
Oh, that's awesome. And now, so your associating gig, so that was a 2 year, was that in one practice? Did you associate in one single practice or multiple practices?
So that was with a smaller group, like a 12 office group, and I worked out of 2 offices. So I did that for about 2 years, and then I started opening up my new practice, or my startup, and then I hung on there for maybe, I want to say 3 months after my office opened. So I think I was there about 3 years total.
Now, do you think that was a good amount of time? Do you think you were
Oh
ready
yeah.
by then to be your own?
Yeah, man. I think that was perfect amount of time. I think it was just enough time. And that was the thing. Like, I started looking at opening up my own office and buying different offices. Is like when you get out of school, you kind of don't know what you don't know. And then you get work on your speed. But I eventually got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm pretty comfortable seeing everybody I'm seeing now. I'm not asking too many questions. I mean, still always ask questions, but nothing like you're just trying to get better. It's not like you get these cases where you just don't know what the heck to do anymore. So it was like I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I can comfortably see people. I'm comfortable with most of my procedures, my procedural mix. I mean, I look back now, that was almost 9 years ago. I feel like I didn't know anything, but at the time, you know how it is. Like you really feel like everything there is to know. And then as we mature as dentists, we realize that you just keep getting better every year. And it's just one of those things you can really never perfect, it seems.
Oh yeah, it is so true. I actually personally, I was the opposite. I took way too long to buy into the practice that I'm in. I associated
Mhm.
for 10 years,
Oh,
which
wow. Okay.
yeah, it was a long process. Um, I got comfortable. I got
Yeah.
comfortable in the whole just doing your thing and going home and not having to deal with the staff and
I miss
all the
that.
HR. Yeah, yeah.
I do
So
miss
that
that. But you know what
yeah.
it was too is I was trying to do training things with the front desk. I wanted to do the scheduling different. I wanted to do a lot of things different than the way they did it. And it just wasn't right for me. I wasn't yeah. So
No,
it just
did
wasn't like I wasn't a good associate. I needed to do my own thing.
was this a did you end up buying someone out, or did you start a scratch office?
Scratch. Yeah, I
Yep.
went and took Scott Luna's breakaway practice seminars down in San Antonio, and just on the recommendation of a colleague, and I was just like, yeah, okay, I'll go check it out. And I remember the first day I was in the hotel, just telling my wife, I'm like, dude, we're just gonna open a practice. She's like, you're
Yeah.
crazy, you can't just open with no patients. I'm like, we're doing it. We're gonna do a
Yeah.
startup. So it went really well. I mean, we were busy out of the gate.
Yeah.
Good location, good marketing, solid growth ever since we opened. So it's been a really good things that I'm glad that we did it.
Did you still associate and kind of do like a 50-50 thing until you built up your practice?
Right. Well, I did it for like about 2, 3 months, and it was just like we were busy enough. I want to say our first month we did maybe 40K, and then their second month maybe right a little bit around 45, and then 50 our third month. And it was comfortable enough where I'm like, this can work, but I would rather sit at the practice without patients than continue to see
Yeah.
patients at my associateship. And the thing was too, man, I was excited about it. I was excited about the business, and you got this new shiny thing, and then you got this other old office that you're working at that just you've been there for 3 years and you're ready for something new. So I think I was just creating excuses to get out of there, but it allowed me to focus on my team and growing it. And we were busy. We were seeing a lot of new patients, so it was time. I didn't feel like I had to hold on to that associateship very long.
Now, did you do all your own hygiene, or did you hire a staff right away?
Right. So my wife is a hygienist, so she started like I did my own hygiene for maybe 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And I hated it, man. I don't ever want to do that again. I can't. You hear about these dentists and they're doing their own hygiene. I think it's just crazy. Like I'd go crazy. But yeah, it was easy. It was easy for me to hire a hygienist because I mean she was my wife and I didn't have to pay her. So
Now, so you just kind of jumped right in. How did you get so many new patients right off the bat?
when we started, it was a lot of drive by. We were probably seeing 40 new patients a month that just said they drove by and they saw like our
Hmm.
mailer and stuff like that. But we were really focused on the Google reviews early. And this was like 2012. And this was before like anyone was really thinking this was very important. So we were like out ahead of everybody in our area, along with a decent website. I mean, I look at back at my first website and I think it's horrible, but it was
Hmm.
good at the time. And we had a good website. We had a good marketing message as far as like that we had a bunch of 5-star reviews and people were saying good things about us. But it also thing that was we were open late, man. We were open until 9 o'clock on Mondays and 8 o'clock
Hmm.
on Wednesdays. And I think we were open until 7 on Wednesdays actually, but we were open late and that was very easy to market. And when I think that is the lowest hanging fruit if you want
Yep.
more new patients is just stay open late. I mean,
Hmm.
phone skills too. You got to work on the people converting over the phone, but um, I think a lot of practice owners really shy away from those late nights, and you really only have to do 1 or 2 a week. And
Hmm.
those people that need that availability, they will also need to come back and schedule the rest of their families and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, we're open Saturdays. I've worked Saturdays for years, and um, we get so many new patients that just offices just aren't open on Saturdays. We're like the
right.
only one in the area. So, and then eventually those patients, they start to schedule during the week, and but we get so many new patients from Saturdays.
Right.
So did Breakaway, did that get you ready? Did you also take some other CE courses and seminars before you open your practice?
I took Productive Dentist Academy was another big one, just
Hmm.
practice management. But no, not really. Just you just kind of do it, and it comes at you, and you handle everything as it comes, and then you just deal with it as it comes. It's a big learning experience, but
Oh yeah.
you figure it out. And I mean, there's so many resources now. You've got the internet, you got all these Facebook groups, you got Dental Town. I mean, there's so many avenues where you can ask questions and stuff.
That's true. There's so much peer engagement out there. There's so many places you can go where, I graduated in '02, and then I did a 2-year residency in '04, and there was
Hmm.
nothing out there back then.
Yeah, right.
So it was totally different. So actually I heard your podcast this morning and you had some big news. So you basically you partnered up with MB2.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We partnered with MB2 on the 11th. I mean, we're recording this on the 21st, so 10 days ago. So a
Hmm.
relatively new partnership. But yeah, I decided to bring on a partner. I guess just to tell listeners, like to give them an idea where my office was. I mean, we went from a 5-op. We were really busy at capacity. We doubled our size to an 11-op office. I have 2 associates, full-time associates. I have a periodontist that comes in every other week for a full day. And I have 30, well, now I have 37 team members. So I have a very large team. So part of my decision to partner with them was, I mean, most of it was like lifestyle decision. It was like, this is what I want the next chapter of my life to be like. But it was like, we could really benefit from the admin services that they provide and stuff. So that was a big decision. It was hard, man. And I went back and forth on it for good, man, 5-6 months. I mean, probably since, I don't even know, maybe almost a year. It seems like I've been going back and forth on this for a long time, but it's something I finally just committed to and said, hey, we're doing it. And I'm happy about the partnership. I think it's going to work out really well for us. And it's going to allow me to move into the next chapter of my life, which I don't know what's going to be. You know, it might be opening additional offices, but I know I really like managing people. I really like the training aspect of it, but I can't say that, not that I hate the clinical, but I really do. I like working with my people more than working with patients.
Now, so you're up to, you said 37 team members.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's some monster growth. So you went from
Yeah.
5 to 11 ops.
Yeah.
And did you buy a new building or did you just expand?
So we're in a strip mall and there was a tanning bed next to me and they closed down. So we went from 2,000 to 4,000 square feet.
Mhm.
And so we were able to build out another 6 operatories out of that.
How was that jump? I mean, that's a major jump. You doubled the size of your
Yeah,
practice.
we went from 15. I want to say we had 15 people back then. I think we hired maybe like 8 or 9 new people to do that. And it was crowded, man, because we were training everybody the month and maybe 6 weeks before we opened up the new side. So we had all these people in a tiny 5-op office. Um, it's a different animal. The communication is different. You get a lot of this like, hey, why are you doing it that way? Well, I don't know. That's how I always did it. Well, we said we're not doing it like that anyway. Well, I brought this up in the meeting, and they'll be like, well, I didn't hear about it. And you're like, well, I told everybody. They're like, well, I don't know. Like, you just get these communication breakdowns as a whole nother level of establishing leaders and not a bureaucracy in your practice, but you need some level, some hierarchy of just communication and just scheduling the communication, scheduling the meetings, which we did before, but it just means a whole nother thing right now. You know, you got to talk to your team. You got to sit there and sit down and figure things out. And it's, if you're not putting it on the schedule, it just doesn't happen.
So do you have, I mean, how do you handle all that staff? Do you have like an assistant leader, a hygiene leader?
Yeah.
Like each department has its own leads?
Yeah. So the big thing for me is, yeah, I have a hygiene lead, I have an assistant lead, and I have a front desk lead. And I also have my office manager
Mhm.
and an insurance coordinator. So those are the leads in my group. We meet, the lead meetings we do once every other week. And we meet as a team once a month. I meet with my hygiene team personally once a month. And I meet with my front desk. You know, it's kind of an as needed thing. Like I would say, like for the past 3 months, we've probably met for an hour thing, maybe 6 different times, you know, and then now I don't think we've met for almost 3 weeks now.
That-
And I,
it-
and I apologize about the noise, Eric. I have like probably 6 construction people doing some like millwork in my house right now. I don't know if
oh,
that's
no
picking up
worries.
on the microphone or not.
I haven't heard anything, so
Okay,
no
good.
worries. And it's these cool aftershock headphones I have that are
Yeah,
like, they were a
nice.
game changer for me.
Really, that's
Um,
cool.
so with that kind of system, that hierarchy, have you noticed less of that communication breakdown?
There's definitely less, but it definitely still happens, and you just try to do your best with it. Like we have a Slack page. I don't know if the listeners are familiar with that, but Slack is an app. It's very, I guess it's kind of Facebook like, but it's like a private app that you can have for your organization where you create channels, and there's a lot of communication that happens in there. And there's a lot of, we have these meetings. We have a 2-hour meeting once a month with the whole team. And then we'll do like about 20 minutes of that as everybody. And then we break into departments and then we come back and we talk within departments. And it's one of those things like when you're about like maybe 12 to 15 people or less, you can, you can have these big meetings and everyone can talk things out. But once you get like past 15 people, it gets really hard to have a productive meeting with that many people contributing. And it's like, seems like over and over, you just keep getting in the weeds about things. You're like, what are we even talking about anymore? So yes, there's still breakdowns, but we having a large team is about creating systems and saying, this is how we do it, training your people on the way that we do it, and giving people the leeway to use their own brains and make their own decisions at the same time. But it's a challenge, and that's the biggest challenge of it. But it's a fun challenge, and the more energy you put into it, the more rewards you get. Just doing a little tweak with a big practice like mine can make a big difference on the bottom line and in the numbers and everything. So just for instance, just doing like some phone training, that'll make a huge difference in our new patient numbers, and it's a much more magnified effect in my practice because it's large versus a smaller practice. But that's the stuff I enjoy. That's the fun stuff, is the training, the working with the team, the communication. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a challenge.
Now, did you ever think about opening a second, facility or totally
Well,
separate
I think
practice?
about that often. I do.
Yeah.
And I'm not there yet. I think that's something that's just going to happen in my future. I just don't think that I'm ready for it. And I don't think I have the
Mhm.
time for it, to be honest. And the fact of the matter is that, with the numbers that we're doing right now, it's almost like I have multiple practices. It's just all in one location. So I can't picture myself doing it anytime soon, but who knows? At some point I'm probably going to stop seeing patients, and maybe that'll be what I enjoy, and maybe it won't be. I haven't figured it out yet, but I haven't committed to one or the other yet.
So did you start thinking about this during the actual quarantine where you said, maybe partnering or selling your practice? Is that when it started?
I was thinking about it a little bit before that. It's something you always think about. You're like, when is my exit? When am I going to get out of this? And I didn't partner up with MB2 to exit by any means, but it's something you always think about. And then being home, man, it was, a lot of people said they couldn't stand it and they wanted their kids to go back to school, and they wanted something to do and they were bored, man. I loved every moment of it. And I couldn't believe, I would have told you before the practice shut down that, man, I don't do anything there. I delegate everything. It's very low stress. And then it went away, and I got to see how stressful it really was when it was gone. I was like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
it is really stressful. So I think that did play a factor in it. It gave me a taste of what would life be like without the practice. And it kind of helped me realize that even though I've been very delegated and my team drives the majority of my practice, that it was mentally occupying a big emotional space in my mind. And it was, it played a huge part in it. When I went back, I said, I'm going to do things differently. And then we opened back up in June, and as time progressed, I set some boundaries with my team. I said they couldn't call me on certain days. I started deflecting more of the putting out the fires, and it eventually it just was the logical progression. I said, you know what, this is time. I need a partner. I need some help on the back end. And the good part is you take some equity out and you get some chips
Yeah.
off the table. I lessen my risk. And if we have another shutdown, do I care? Yeah, of course I care. I'm still an owner in the practice, but I don't care as much as I would when I was 100% owner.
Yeah. So that was a really good point you said about mentally occupying the space in your mind, because one of the silver linings of the quarantine was that, I personally, I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. And for 3 months while we were shut down, I had to do something. I wasn't just going to, sit there and get fat,
Right.
which I did anyway. So I might as well be
So did I.
productive. So, so I started a website, podcast. I learned how to develop a website. I said, I have to do something. And it was such a great distraction from the office.
Hmm.
Um, and then that turned into, some blogging, developing the podcast. Now I'm writing a book.
Nice.
So all these things have really helped me reduce my stress from the office, because if I was only thinking office, 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 I think, the quarantine would have driven me, into, deep burnout. Um, but I started to create these other businesses and endeavors, and it was really such a great distraction, because you also personally, you have a podcast, you
Hmm.
have coaching and consulting businesses, you wrote a book. So do you find that that is such a great stress relief from the stresses of the clinical
Well,
aspect of
yeah.
the profession?
It's one of those things, man. You have patients that are upset with you, and you have a patient that had unrealistic expectations. and you have a patient complaining about something, you've got a team member complaining about something, there's drama going on at the practice between people. None of these, I don't have anything like that in my podcast, in my dental business mentor, which is my teaching site. I don't have any of that with my coaching or consulting. I don't have that being on podcasts such as yours. I mean, I'm not putting out any fires with you and I today, and I have, like, it's not like we're going to get in an argument. So it's like, like you said, like the more I did these side projects, is I think that was kind of a turning point for me, that I realized, man, I really like the content creation. I really like creating. I just like the whole possibility of it. Like today I woke up, I have a podcast with you, I have a coaching call after this, and then I have nothing. But I'm not going to do nothing. I'm gonna work on some other things. I'm gonna work on some ideas for like my solo podcast next year. I have to wrap up some weird things financially with like a 401k. Like, I have things to do with that, but they're not stressful. They're things that I choose to do and that I would do if I didn't have to do anyway, I think. So yeah, once I started doing all these side things, I think is when I started kind of saying, you know what, man, taking care of patients is pretty stressful.
Yeah.
And I think that's what started my steady decline of clinical. Like, for instance, I was 4 days a week, and then I was 3 days a week when I brought on my associate. When we expanded our practice, I went down to 2 days a week. And then coming up in February, I'm going back to 1.5 days a week. And all of these weeks, I'm taking off 1 week a month. So these are only 3 weeks out of each month that I'm doing this. And that just seems to be the logical progression, that I'm eventually going to end up being non-clinical. But yeah, I mean, just like you, man, I was busy over quarantine. I wasn't just, doing puzzles and watching TV. And it's funny you mentioned, everyone says like, man, if I could work out all day, I'd be so skinny. And then you actually had like the chance to work out all day. And then I was like, man, I put on probably 20 pounds in the quarantine, It's just
I have little kids, so there's always French fries and Dino
yeah,
Nuggets around, and
I know.
they just smell so good, and they're
I
sitting
know.
there, and
Can't say no.
Yeah, so I mean, by the time this airs, it will probably be into 2021.
Okay.
So I mean, 2020 was such a crazy year.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, there's so many things that happened, and it was a great time. There were some silver linings that I really took out of it. Like, I could reset my office. We had the time to pick up a digital scanner, so we no longer take PVS impressions. We fixed some systems, so there was some things that we were able to kind of reset. Also, I live and work in the same town, so I can go to the grocery store in a mask and not everyone recognizes me anymore immediately. So
that is a plus.
no one knows if I have bad breath or not. So there were some silver linings.
Don't have to shave.
Yeah, anything goes. You don't have to shave. So although you do have to put things in perspective, because a friend of mine, he's in California, and he has multiple offices.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his practices was looted during some of the rioting.
Oh, wow.
Another practice, I think, went up in flames in California during the fires, and he's dealing with a pandemic. So, to put it in perspective, I mean, yeah, my office is probably down 25%, but it could have been a lot worse. I mean,
yeah.
I just think, that we'll be fine. We're still up and running. We're getting great reviews. All the patients and staff feel safe. So, but just what a crazy year.
Well, I mean, we're lucky to be in the industry we're in, because, I mean, think of all these, restaurants, they're getting crushed, man. At least we can still operate. And that they're doing all the shutdowns everywhere again, and dentists aren't getting shut down this time. So I'm very thankful for the industry that we're in.
Yeah. If there is another shutdown, I still think we'll be fine. So tell me about your partnering with MB2. Mm-hmm. What was that whole process like? How did you end up choosing them? Was there negotiating that went into it?
Yeah, well, there wasn't a lot of negotiation, because they were pretty much like, this is what we offer for a practice of your size EBITDA. But what was it, man? I talked to them, and then I eventually hired a broker, and a broker shopped me around to some different ones. I got pretty far with 2 other groups. The reason I chose MB2 is that the other 2 groups, what everyone's fear about corporate is like that someone's going to come into your practice and tell you what to do, give you some quotas and goals, and it's going to be more about the profits than about the patients and the team. And that's what everyone's fear is, And I got to say, with the two other groups other than MB2 I talked to, I really kind of felt like that was a very strong possibility, as they were saying that, once we implement our systems in your office, once we start getting our regional director that used to be, they were not, this person's an office manager for this many years, and they're going to come teach you or you're in your team how to do this. And I don't want that. My office is doing good. So MB2's thing is that they're dentist driven, that the owner dentist still maintains autonomy and decisions on everything, and they will provide the back end kind of behind the scenes admin support. And for an office my size, that was really beneficial for us. And it's like the payroll and all the credentialing and all the compliance stuff. Now, that I wasn't personally doing that myself. That was my office manager's role. But our partnership has probably saved my office manager. I mean, she's probably going to save 10, 12 hours a week now.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives her more time to train the team and work on things like that. So my partnership, it consisted of me shopping these 3 deals, finding out that what they were, the offerings I was getting from all 3 of them were fairly similar. They were fairly the same as far as numbers and cash and stuff, but it just didn't feel, it didn't feel right with the other 2 groups, and which is why I didn't end up going with them. And then I actually said no to the other 2 groups. And then I hadn't talked to MB2 for a good, probably 4 or 5 months. And I didn't even think I was going to do it. And then after I said and thought about it, I'm like, man, I'm going to talk to them one more time. And then once I got to like meet their C-suite, all those guys and girls, and met them and learned more about their culture, I was just like, dude, this is the right thing for me. But it was hard, man. This is my baby. This is the thing I've been growing for the past 9 years. You're scared to sell your moneymaker. It's a really profitable practice and it's doing really well. So why would I ever sell it? But for me, it was more about, what am I going to be doing in the next 5, 10 years? And do I want the freedom to do that? So if I want to stick around with this practice 3 years from now, by all means, I will. And if I want to cut down my hours 3 years from now or now, which I'm a day and a half a week, I can. I still in control. So it just was better for me from a flexibility standpoint and a freedom standpoint, that maybe 3 years from now, I don't even want to be there at all. Who knows? I don't know what it's going to feel like. But so far in our little short partnership that we've had, just, it hasn't even been a month yet. It feels different. It feels good. It feels like the emotional attachment I have to every little thing that happens there is much less now than it was a month ago. And I think that was what I wanted this partnership to do for me, just to take some of the stress away and the anxiety and the worry. And it's done that. So far, so good. Time will tell, but I think it's going to be good. I've talked to other people that have partnered with MB2 and they've all been really happy too. So that was part of my due diligence. So I'm confident that I'll have the same experience.
Now, were the other groups that you spoke with, were they more hands-on with clinical systems and a little
Yes.
more involved with that? And that wasn't
Yeah.
your cup of tea?
Yeah, they're talking about my hygienist, and they're going to come in here and they got to do a lot of work in my hygiene program. And once they get their hygiene program in my office, and they introduce lasers and we're going to do more resting, and it's just kind of like, it was just almost like the things you would think that, I don't want to talk crap about major chains, and I won't even say names, but it's kind of like what you thought. That's what I thought it was kind of going to be like to join a corporation. And it kind of seemed like it was going to be like that. And it's, I mean, for me with my office, and I throw out numbers there, and I'm not trying to like humble brag by any means, but like, we're in the 4 millions in collections, and I can't sell my practice to an associate. They'll never get the amount of money to pay me for the value. So my only exit is with joining a group. But so far, no regrets, and I'm glad I would do it. And I think if I had a smaller office, I'd still probably do it the same way, because I see the benefit of being part of a group now.
Now, do they have like different packages where if you wanted them to be a little more hands-on, you chose, MB2 because they were kind of helping you more with the back end, back office stuff and not
Right.
the clinical. But what if you wanted them to be a little bit more clinically
Mhm.
involved? Was that an option as well?
Well, so they say they're there to help us on the back end, and they are there to help us with whatever we want help with. So if
Mhm.
we want help with something, they will reach out to them. And I do have a regional director that I speak to. Her name is Annette, and she will help me with whatever I want to do with my office. So I would say, yeah, they would support you in that, but I don't know from personal experience. I haven't had any type of support like that from them. I think if you wanted it, they would give it to you, which is nice, rather than someone shoving it down your throat and you don't want
Right.
it, you know,
Yep.
and that's what I think the difference is between MB2 and some other groups.
Now, how about the negotiation with the percentage of ownership? Is that, do
Mhm.
they have a standard package for that, or is that something you were
Well,
offered?
I don't know if they have, I'm pretty sure they do have a standard package of it. No, I did zero negotiating with them.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, a little bit in the contract, little clauses here and there, just that my attorney threw in just to protect me. But I think it's pretty standard. You know, they I think they base their offers based on EBITDA, you know, which is, for
Hmm.
listeners, on earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and that's just pretty much your owner profits.
Hmm.
So they base it off that, you know. And if any of your listeners want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to have a conversation with them about if it's something they're thinking about. Like, I mean, I was kind of stuck in limbo land for a while, and I talked to a lot of dentists that had done it. It was helpful for me, so I just pay it forward. They can send me an email at dentalpracticeheroes@gmail.com if anyone's listening and kind of wants to talk about that.
I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's great that it's, it's working out, and they're not, they're allowing you to run your systems, your practice the way that you've always done it and the way that you want to do it. And you've set the tone of that practice and the culture. And um, you know, why would you want someone to come in and just change everything?
Yeah, it wouldn't be
That's
fair to
what,
my team.
right.
It wouldn't be fair to them who's been with me along the journey and helped me create all these systems. I mean, they're a huge part of what we do and how we do it. So to sell them out to, you know what, guys, hey, I'm not the boss anymore. This is your new boss. So, and then, you know, that's not the way I wanted to do it. I still wanted to be an owner. I still want to be the boss.
Now, you wrote the book Dental Practice Hero, and that was back in 2017.
Yeah.
And I read that book, phenomenal read, and I gave it, to my office manager, my partner, my bookkeeper, and it was, a lot of it was about team,
Yeah.
and you're kind of checking in with the staff. Is that your thing, that you're very into, the HR management, and just keeping in touch with the staff and communication?
Well, I think my big thing is the communication with the team. Yeah, that's my strong suit. And again, I don't say this to brag, but I got 37 team members right now. No one has ever left my team. 9 years. Okay, now we didn't always have 37 team members, but there's a reason for that, and that's because I'm asking the questions. I'm seeking and I'm soliciting the feedback from my team. Like, hey, how are we doing? How are things for you? You know, and I talk to them. Excuse me. I talk to them all the time about how things are going and what they think we should do, and I let them get creative and create things, and I let them screw things up, and I forgive them when they do, and we don't make anyone feel bad at my practice. So it's just like a very great growth culture, you know, foundationally grounded, and we're going to take the best care of people we possibly can so that they can tell more people about us and we can help more people. That's our vision, that's our goal. But it's if you're not asking the questions, you're not taking the time to talk to your team, it becomes very difficult to keep people, and keeping training new people is tough. And culture is built, you know, it's just like trust. It's not something you just say, hey, let's trust each other, let's have a great culture. You got to build that. So that's my thing, it's always been very open communications. I mean, I think I'm easy to talk to, my team tells me I'm easy to talk to, and I'm just very careful about how I react when they tell me things, because when they share something with me, or they take a risk, or they're going to tell me they screwed something up, I want to be very careful that I don't make them feel bad, because I want them to tell me about it. You know, I want to know these things. And if I criticize them, if I get defensive of they tell me I'm being a jerk, which I am a jerk sometimes, you know, I'm normal, I'm human. And they tell me I'm a jerk, I just have to count to three and go, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I'm really sorry. And that's another thing, saying sorry. I say sorry all the freaking time, man. If you can't recognize when you've hurt somebody or someone's mad at you, come on. I mean, you just got to sometimes just say sorry. And sometimes I'm saying sorry for things that I really don't think were my fault, but that's okay, because I want the relationships in my practice to be good, and I don't have to be right. I'm almost 40 years old. I'm done being right. I'd rather just be happy. So
Mhm. That's so well put. Having a great culture and team is, you want to go to work happy, and you want to work with people you enjoy working with. Um, what's your process in hiring? How do you
mhm.
find these great employees? That do you hire on attitude and not on experience?
Well, we're at the point where we need some experience, you know, because my practice is really busy, and we've tried I mean, we're hiring on attitude. I mean, don't get me wrong, but we've tried hiring people that are in other industries, and it tends to take a little bit more time than I think what we have or we're willing to give for, as far as training. So we do want some experience, but usually involves us just posting an ad on Indeed. My office manager will call them if they're sound friendly on the phone. They come in for an interview. Usually that interview is while I'm at the practice. My office manager will do the interview, and if she likes this person, then I get to go meet them. If I like them, then I grab one of my other leads or just someone on my team, say, hey, go talk to this person for 30 minutes. And then we have them come in and do a 4-hour working interview. And we've done all those steps are the result of 2 bad hires that we made. Okay. So I said, no, like no one's ever left my team. We fired 2 people within 3 weeks of them starting, and we didn't do the working interview. It was just me and my office manager doing the interview. And right on their first day when they started, we just knew it wasn't going to work. And we tried and we pushed for 3 weeks until we finally said, okay, you know what? We were giving the benefit of the doubt here. They weren't the right person for the job. And so now we do it that way. But like, let me say this too. We found great people. I've got 37 all-stars, like literally, like I'm telling you, all-stars. But think about how good your team would be if no one ever left. You know what I mean? And you only you kept the people that you wanted to keep, and you just replaced them with other people like them. I mean, that's the thing, is like, it's been difficult for me to hire because we're growing, and sometimes it's really hard to find people. But it's so much easier to keep that going when I'm not replacing seats. Like if I had to replace people and grow, man, I don't think I could find enough people to do it, because every time we go and put an ad out, someone always just squeaks in right under the radar, like right at the end. And we're like, dude, that's the person. That person's joining our team. And I can't tell you how many times we've interviewed for positions. We're just like, dude, where are all the good applicants? So for me, it's about, I want to hire people I enjoy talking to. And if I enjoy talking to them, so will the patients, and so will my team. And that's about it. You got to be outgoing. You got to be enthusiastic. You got to smile a lot. That's all you have to be for me. And you have to have some experience, as we want you to have some dental experience. But it's all about just personality for me.
Yeah. Now, and if it's not working out, better to get rid of them quickly and just move on.
Well, I mean, that was my experience with those 2 people. Yeah. Absolutely. And it was the first person I ever fired. I remember she cried. They both cried when we fired them. The second one, I actually kind of chickened out, and I made my office manager do it, because she was on the front end, and I didn't really have much communication with her to begin with. So I just didn't feel like I wanted to do that. So I pawned it off on her. But the first one she was a dental assistant, and yeah, you don't want to make anybody cry. I don't like making girls cry. That stinks, So it was hard, but we just couldn't. We were pouring so much energy into this person that just sweet, very sweet personality, very sweet, just wasn't ever gonna get it to the standards that I wanted. My office was not the right office for her. So
yeah, the first step is that they actually show up for the interview. I can't tell you how many people just never even showed up. Like, what, did they get the wrong day? Like, and it's just, it's unbelievable.
Well, this one I'm talking about, she showed up to the interview in like really short jean shorts. Yeah. So like we call their jean shorts, like, when's jean shorts starting? Cause I'm like, man, you know what? Like maybe she got 2 kids. Maybe she just had to drop them off at practice or something. She didn't get a chance to go home and change. At least she showed up on time. In retrospect, I think jean shorts just really was clueless. Yeah. And that's what she decided to wear to the interview. But I gave her the benefit of the doubt, and I probably shouldn't have. So
yeah, I wear jean shorts to all my interviews. So, but
I hope those are coming back in style, man. I miss the jean shorts. They go with everything.
Yeah, I just wear them at home. Yeah,
I'm gonna get some.
So we actually we had an assistant that she was there for about a week or 2. There were some red flags. And then one day, we're open on Saturdays. She came in on a Saturday, so hungover. She got so wasted the night before.
Yeah.
She said she was going to take a nap in one of the dental chairs, and she took a nap during lunch, and I couldn't wake her up. She was snoring, and she was so passed out that she was snoring so loud that we had to move to the other end of the office I usually work in rooms 1 and 2. I had to go down to rooms 6 and 7 because I couldn't wake her up, and she was snoring like an orchestra. So
holy cow.
Yeah. So, some people just, slip through
Did
that.
you just like tape a note to her chest and say, when you wake up, you're fired?
No, don't bother coming back. Um, so yeah, I mean, having a great team is so important. And turnover is such a killer. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not only is it exhausting, but it's expensive to
Hmm.
find someone new and train them. So you find good people, take good care of them, and make it people that you enjoy working with.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let
Now,
me add one more thing to that, Eric, is that, the thing is too, is that I've had team members upset where they have come to me, they haven't come to me. I have asked them how things are going, and I have had team members tell me, you know what, I'm thinking about leaving, you
mhm,
know? And the one that comes to mind is like one of my insurance coordinator. She told me she was thinking about leaving 4 years ago now, and the thing is when you're asking your team, you're on the pulse of how everyone's feeling, man, all the things that she was upset about, I didn't know about them. I didn't know they
mhm,
were going on. I didn't know what was upsetting her. And those would have perpetuated and continued until she said, you know what, screw it. I'm fed up with this stuff. But I asked her, and she felt comfortable enough to tell me, and I addressed them, and now she's happy.
yeah,
So that's the thing, is that why has no one left my team? Well, because I'm talking to them, and I'm finding out what's upsetting them, and I'm giving them, I say, man, oh, everything's great. Everything's no, really. Tell me what frustrates you the most. Oh, everything. I love everything here. Everything, nothing frustrates me. You got to give me one thing. I need one thing from you. Tell me what's the most frustrating thing. I don't care if it's that when you walk in, you got to step over somebody's shoes. You better come up with something. And they always come up with something. They go, well, and then they give you something that like you knew they were just holding back on it. You
yeah.
got to press because everyone gets frustrated by something. And so yeah, I just wanted to throw that little tidbit in there that if you talk to your team, you can find out about these things to avoid them leaving.
Now, did you learn this? Did you have this early on in your career? Or was this a learned behavior where your
Just learn,
communication just got,
man.
yeah.
What's weird is that I learned it and then I like read some books. I'm like, that's what it is. That's what I do. Like I read a book about psychological safety, meaning that you make it safe for people. I'm like, that's what I do. I read another really great book called it's called I Hear You. It's something like incredibly simple art to extraordinary relationships. I don't know, but it's called I Hear You, and it's all about just like validating people's feelings. And I was like, holy cow, this is the secret sauce. This is what I do with everyone. Now I don't know where the heck I learned that, if I learned that from my parents or my peer group and when I was growing up. But I've always just been someone. I think my dad always taught me just kind of say it how it is,
Mhm.
and say it how it is I have an ex sister in law that used to say it how it was, and she said, I just say it how it was. But she shouldn't be saying what she was saying. Like you got to have the emotional skill. You got the emotional skills to know when you can
Yeah,
say the F word in public, I guess is a good analogy. But
yeah.
it's like you got to don't say it how it is all the time, but just speak clearly with people, communicate your ideas. Like not everyone thinks like you, and not everyone has the same perspective nor expectations, and that's what makes us human. But to work together, we have to talk, and you have to share, and you have to get vulnerable, and you have to respect other people's opinions. So I think that was all kind of just foundationally, just probably from my upbringing. But I took that into leadership, and but yeah, no, it was not something I learned. I mean, maybe I learned it by trial and error, but
Mhm.
it wasn't like I went to a course on how to do that.
Now, what kind of advice can you give for, like personally, I'm more introverted,
Hmm.
because what you said there, the not knowing what's going on is so common in dental offices,
Yeah,
especially you're busy.
right.
If you're a high volume office, big staff, and you seem like you're very kind of in touch with the communication with the staff. But what about someone that's working, they just got out of school, they're $500,000 in debt, they're
Yeah,
working 6 days a week, and they just don't have the time.
yeah.
What do you recommend for them?
Um, you know what? And this is going to be very counterintuitive, but I would say work less. I really strongly, so strongly believe in this, that if you can't, you will make more money working less if you put in the effort to doing these things. Now, how much do you have to do that? Let's say you're a solo doc at a practice, you guys are open 5 days a week. I would say cut down to 4 days a week and take a full day of just working with your team instead of
Mhm.
doing that. Now, you really probably don't even have to do that. Honestly, you could probably do like maybe 2, 3 hours a week where you just block out some time and you just bring people in your office and talk to them. And you just walk around and you just talk to people and just get to know them more on a personal level too. I mean, relationship building is a big part of it as well, is a big part of that trust. So I think you can go further faster if you're doing those things. But because yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, turnover costs. Turnover is a time suck. Turnover costs money. Um, I think you have to. Now, as far as like someone who's introverted, I think you can be introverted and still do this same thing. Like as much as people would tell you I'm very extroverted, I like to be by myself, and I enjoy my alone time, and I think sometimes going to the office and putting on a happy face all day long is exhausting, So I feel for that. But I think when you start to see the results and you start to see the engagement of your team, it'll feed on you. It's almost like when you start working out and you start seeing the results, you're like, all right, let's keep doing this. I can tell you just recently with my front desk team, I just started noticing that I started talking to my front desk team, 12 of them, maybe there's 12 of them. I have no idea how many there are. And I said, who's comfortable doing in-house financing? And I found there was like 3 of them comfortable doing it. I'm like, what the heck is this? So then I was like, you know what? I'm going to meet with half of you guys for an hour on Wednesday. We'll have the night team come in early, and then you guys can stay an hour later, and then I'll meet with the other half. And we did that for maybe 6 weeks straight. And I can't tell you how different it felt at that front desk. They felt, appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
They felt, someone's giving them the tools to do their job better. Everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to do better. We felt connected. The culture felt different. And immediately we started getting more 5-star reviews. It was like, and now maybe that just is chance. I don't know. But I don't think it was. I think it's when you work with your team, that culture changes. And when you talk to your team, that culture changes. People feel good when you invest the time in them. And I think so for new dentists, yeah, I get it. You got to crank, man. But I always tell people September is a really bad month. I used to take no time off in September. Then I took 1 week off. We still did the same. I took 2 weeks off in September. We literally still do the exact same number. You can take all those holes in your schedule, cut back your time, and you can consolidate it. And I guarantee you will actually probably make more when you cut down your days, and to some certain extent. Now, if you're busy straight on through, I mean, that doesn't make sense. But if you got holes in your schedule, you can consolidate that schedule and make a little bit of time for your team. And I think it will pay off more than any other course or CE class that you will take.
Yeah, I think that, more time for your team. So, like you said, less clinical hours. I mean, clinically, is exhausting when you're working 8 hours a day and you're, doing hygiene checks, and, you're worried about, you got to keep that happy face on for your patients, for all the hygiene patients. Totally exhausting.
Yep.
Especially, for me as an introvert, that social interaction was exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a sweatpants to scrub ratio. So
Uh-huh.
I literally, my whole life now is I'm either in sweatpants or I'm in scrubs.
Uh-huh.
So I live 7 minutes away from my office. So I drive to work in sweatpants and I change into scrubs, and then I
Nice.
put my sweatpants back on and I go home.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
the less clinical hours, so less scrub time, more time, non-clinical time. I just find that I'm happier, just in general,
Yeah.
taking that time off. And that's really the name of the game. You want to enjoy going to work, and you can't run yourself ragged, for 30 years. It's just, you're just never going to be able to do it. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, when people get burned out. So decreasing your clinical hours, finding some other interests, is such a great stress relief, from the stresses of the profession. So I want to wrap this baby up with
Mm-hmm.
something I heard on one of your other podcasts. Cause there's a couple of life coaches on my website.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the major, and I know therapy is totally different than a life coach,
Mm-hmm.
where therapy is more about, learning about your past and
Right.
what makes you tick in your childhood and why you are the way you are. Whereas a life coach is more about setting goals and moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But therapy was such an important, part of me enjoying, avoiding burnout, enjoying going to work every day.
Me as well.
Tell me about
Yep.
your experience with a life coach.
So I've done life coaching and I've done therapy. I've done therapy twice for 2 periods in my life, one of which was maybe 2014, and just, I mean, this year was because like this is my year. I did so much personal growth this year. And it's because of the therapy and the life coach. But yeah, life coach, they just help you work through, like, so like, and I talked about this on my podcast. My life coach asked me, said, how much joy do you spend in your working week? What percentage is it things that are joyful for you? I said, I don't know, like maybe like 20, 25%. And she's just like, well, why do you do all those other 75% of stuff? And I'm like, I don't know. And then like, well, what do you do that doesn't bring you joy? Okay, let's talk about it. Let's dissect it. And if I told you like the conversations we have, like this was my problem and this was the solution we came up with, you'd be like, yeah, no crap, man. That's logical sense. But I'm telling you, you just can't arrive at those conclusions on your own because you got all these like emotional tie-ins to all these things, like these stories that we tell ourselves. Like, dude, I could never go down to 1.5 days a week clinical because my team would never let me. And then like we dissect this issue, and it could really, it's just 2 team members I'm talking about that I'm worried that they would be upset if I cut my clinical time more. And then I'm just sure of it. I'm so sure of it. And then she's like, well, did you ever ask them? I'm like, no, I should just freaking ask them, and I'm telling you, like, it's just things like that. It's so simple, but it's not. But then it's also like getting like really clear on like, what do you want more of? Not beating yourself too much over what you think you should have or should want, or how you think you should behave, and just planning out the things that like you really love doing and just doing more of them and figuring out a way for it to work within your life. It's funny. It's very hard to describe life coaching, but I cannot tell you. I think it is the best thing I've ever done in my whole entire life was working with my life coach. And yeah, like listeners, you guys want to, I'd be happy to refer them to the person I use. If anyone wants to send me that email, I'll do that. But yeah, life coach is great. It's hard to describe, but dude, what do you have to lose? Like try it for 3 months. If it ain't working, stop doing it. That's why I tell people that everyone's always scared to cut down clinical days. Well, guess what? Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. You just add that day back. Big deal. But we make these big problems bigger than they are. So it's yeah, I think that's about it. I'll stop there.
Now, do you wish that you had gotten in touch with a life coach much earlier on in your career?
Yes, absolutely. I think the amount of growth I've done this year is it's the same thing with my expansion. Once you know what you know, it's so much easier to go forward faster. When we went from 5 to 11 ops, we maxed that place out quick. It took so much longer to max out that 5 op. And that's just because I didn't really exactly understand what I was doing or didn't know what to focus on. And I think I was putting my energy in the wrong places. Now with the life coach is really changed the way, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm still working on a lot of stuff, man. I'm never going to be perfect. Always just becoming better, because we always go back to our defaults, as you know, everyone has their default. But yeah, to have somebody really make you spend that mental energy on what do I want, what do I enjoy, what do I love, and how to get more of it. It's a nice thing to say that one day I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do this. When I would say most of us don't even sit down for an hour a year and write goals. So yeah, it's helpful in that regard. And as you know, Eric, the people that write down goals, man, you get your goals. You just you got to sit there and think about what it is you want. So I think if bare minimum, it's helpful for that regard.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about goals, and mine is, of course, more sweatpants, less scrubs. So that's one of my goals. So
you got to get that printed on like a wall somewhere or something.
I know. I got to make it.
I love that.
I smell t-shirt.
Right.
So yeah, so let's, thanks so much for joining us again, Dr. Paul Etchison. Are you working on a second book, did you say? And what's that all about?
I got a second book. It's going to be Dental Practice Hero 2. And it's more focused on kind of what we talked about today, that I really think it's just so beneficial. When I wrote the first one, I had just taken on an associate, and having had an associate for 5 years now, I've realized that the practice runs much better, and your life is much more fulfilling, less stress when you have the time to cut your clinical days and work more. Now, I've coaching clients that have cut clinical days without an associate. So I'm not saying you have to have an associate. I think life is better with associate. We're not so alone. It's fun to take time off from the practice and not see it as an opportunity cost, rather than like, this vacation costs $5,000, but it really costs, $20,000 because I shut down the office. It's nice to not think about that. But my new book's about going down to 3 days a week. It's just primarily focused on that, the systems you need to do that. And that will be out as soon as I get off my lazy butt and finish editing it. What's funny is that you said, Eric, is that my my first book came out in 2017. One of my biggest regrets is releasing my book on New Year's Eve of 2017 because it immediately makes it seem older than it is. I should have waited one. Yeah, it was like literally released on like January 30th or whatever, 31st. And it was just such a brain fart. Like, that's a 2017 book. It really came out at the beginning of 2018.
Yeah. It's like you lost a whole year. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, Paul. I read your first book, so I look forward to reading your second book when that comes out. But let's be in touch. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I had a good time.
All right. Great. Yeah. Be in touch. Take care.
Cool.